All right. Namaste, Rajiv ji. We're live
Namaste.
now at the Being Yoga Festival. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us. I personally am
Delighted to
so
be here.
excited to speak with you. Before we begin, before I introduce Rajiv ji to our audiences, we have close to 1 million people with us today via our Facebook pages, via Paytm, via Shamaru. We're live streaming across a number of different platforms. I just want to encourage everyone to give. The purpose of this entire festival is to raise money for those who have a lot less than we do. And even if it's just 150 rupees, the donate button is right below our Facebook campaign. So do find it in your hearts to donate even a little bit. Everything goes towards migrant laborers in India who survive on daily wages. So that is the purpose of why Rajiv ji is giving us our time amongst so many other people. So we really hope that you find it in your hearts to give. Um, Rajiv Malhotra is a phenomenal thinker, a writer, an intellectual, and he's written several best-selling books. And what he does is that he brings in current affairs into perspective. He relating them to civilizations, to science, to technology, to religion, and leading for an absolutely fantastic view on things. So I have been following his work, and I have several questions, burning questions that I'd like to ask him. But the first one that comes to mind, Rajiv ji, history repeats itself over and over again. And what the current scenario feels to me like is as if there's a war outside or there's emergency going on. We're all locked down, or maybe there's a natural disaster that's happened. But why do these things happen? What is the Vedic point of view towards pandemics?
Wonderful. Namaste to all the viewers everywhere. I'm delighted to be on this show. Before we talk about the pandemic, I just want to set the context of the relationship between Ved and Yoga. You were giving an
Absolutely.
excellent demonstration on pranayama a few minutes ago. And you mentioned a very important point that this is not just physical, it's mental. It requires engagement of the mind and it influences the mind. So we have to understand who is the self that is doing this? Who is the yogi? What is the yogi all about? Is it a body? Is it a mind? Is it even more than that? If you had a robot doing the same pranayama, it would not have the same effect because the robot doesn't have our physiology. So the processes of yoga are geared towards the physiology that we human beings have. And this physiology is explained in the Sankhya system, which is part of the Vedas. And this Vedanta is the metaphysical foundation on which yoga functions. So along with yoga, you have meditation, you have Ayurveda. So all of these things are one ecosystem. And you cannot sort of take it apart and pick and choose. Otherwise, you have a flea market. A lot of people have turned it into a flea market where they pick this and they pick that, but it's not really going to have the same effect. Now, people sometimes say that, yoga has nothing to do with the Vedic heritage. The problem with that is that, a medicine has to be taken with the right diet, with the right lifestyle. And there are contraindicated things you don't take. So the medicine will work on anybody, but it has to be taken properly. So similarly, yoga is universal. It will work for anybody of any heritage, identity, ethnicity. It is universal. But there are certain ecosystems that are part of the yoga tradition which have to be honored because it will not do the full job. It may do a partial job. It may even be counterproductive unless the whole ecosystem is part of it. And that ecosystem has to do with the nature of the self, which the Vedas have explained. So that's kind of an introduction on how to be a yogi in an authentic way within the Vedic context. So I think this should be clear. Now let's move on to your question, which has to do with the pandemic. The cosmic structure, according to our Vedas, is cyclical, and there are many evolutions, destructions, many things emanate, things manifest, and then things get dissolved. This is part of the natural cycle. So pandemics, tsunamis, volcanoes, some other object from the sky came and killed all beings at a certain point in time. That's how the dinosaurs disappeared. So these things have happened. Now, one important lesson we can learn is that the ecosystem has to be in equilibrium. Man has to respect nature. Man has not been respecting nature. Human beings have been disrespecting animals all over the place, creating pollution, deforesting, and a whole lot of greed, materialism. So this is nature fighting back. This is the one way to look at it from a Vedic perspective is the collective karma of humanity. The collective karma of humanity went so far away from the nature and the equilibrium we are part of. And so we kind of became the owners of nature rather than becoming part of nature. And so this is nature fighting back. And yoga is not only on the mat, but also off the mat. Yeah. The yoga off the mat is a yoga, the other 23 hours of your life every day is yoga off the mat, which is your attitude towards fellow beings, your attitude towards nature, towards animals, towards the cosmos, towards your own self, towards, So this is called yagna. Yagna is the equilibrium. Yagna is the equilibrium between oneself and the rest of what exists. And so, as you mentioned earlier, one has to give. You're asking people to give. So giving is part of yagna. So the yagna is not just a fire ceremony, that's just a ritual. But what it really symbolizes is the whole ethos of giving. And every moment you as a yoga teacher are giving, you should be giving. You are getting, each breath you are getting from nature, from the world of plants that have created the oxygen. So you have to be giving to nature because you cannot survive without what nature is giving to you. So this ecosystem of being a giver is part of the Vedic lifestyle. And pandemic is a way to do a reset. Pandemic is a reset, a hard reset saying, okay, guys, time to stop and take note of this. You have to take note of the bigger picture of life, of the cosmos, of nature. So I think that a wise thing after the pandemic is over in the post-pandemic world would be to kind of come back to some basics and really introspect whether humanity is on the right track or whether we need a correction. So I'll just leave it at that and then we'll continue.
Absolutely. But Rajivji, I'm going to take on that point. How is it that each one of us can make this correction in our life? Following, again, the basic principles of yoga and even of Ayurveda. You've written widely about Ayurveda. You speak a lot about Ayurveda. So what are some simple things that we can do in our lives to do that reset? We've mentioned yagna over here, to give a little bit, whether it's money, whether it's time. And just on that note, if you are on Rajiv Ji's Facebook page, you can visit the Ira Yoga Wellness Facebook page where the donate button is for the campaign, or to our festival website, beingyogafestival.org, to give a little bit. But Rajiv Ji, back to you. What is it that each one of us can do to do this little bit of a reset?
So,
and how can yoga and Ayurveda help?
Yeah. So the collective karma of all humanity is what the nature is fighting back. It's the collective karma. It's not necessarily that I did something to animals or you did, and so the nature is fighting back, but we all collectively did. And we are all consumers of the collective karma because, each time I put some gas in my car, I'm doing a transaction with the whole oil and energy industry. Each time I consume something, then how was it grown? What chemicals were placed in the soil? I'm benefiting from the consumer economy. I am benefiting from the consumer economy. And if the consumer economy is abusive towards nature, I am part of that collective karma. So we as consumers should be very careful of what we consume, whether the item we are consuming was a result of violence, whether it was a result of some harm to somebody. And if it was, I cannot pretend, look, I didn't do it. I didn't kill those creatures. I'm just eating them. Somebody cooked it and put it in front of me and I'm just eating them and I didn't kill them. The point is that because I'm eating it is why they are able why that industry is able to survive and thrive. So every time you consume something which was produced in a wrongful way, you are party to that karma. That is the principle. So how we engage with our consumption, how we engage with other people. Are we there to help other people? I want people to decide that the real principle of Ayurveda, yoga, etc., says you should give back more than what you consume. Your net footprint on this planet should be as a giver rather than a taker. There are two kinds of people: the net takers, who are always out to figure out what's in it for me. How do I get more out of this? And then there are net givers who are looking at it and saying, okay, how can I help? What can I do to make the situation better? And the help is not just to people you know, but anonymous people, total strangers, and in situations where you have nothing to gain.
This is, this is a beautiful thought that you've given us, and it makes me also wonder how each one of us can do a little bit more. But we have about 7 or 8 more minutes left, and these are some questions that I myself have been thinking so much about, and I've done a little bit of study on myself, but not, of course, as much as you have, and gone to that kind of depth. But you talked a lot about consumerism, and the West is like and that's why I feel like the US is possibly one of the worst hit places, because they are the.
But even India has become a consumer. India. I mean, I don't give them a free pass. Indians, the youth have become,
of course,
they're chasing Americanism, and not even
Absolutely.
and not even genuine Americanism, but fake Americanism. It's sort of like a bandwagon to become more American and pick up the bad habits. Americans have lots of good habits also. Like they've picked up a lot of our habits, like yoga, which we can pick up some good habits from the Americans. So Indians are not exempt from this problem of consumerism. And violence.
Absolutely, but and violence, of course. Now, talking to your point about yoga in the West and how the West has picked up yoga, how has the West appropriated yoga? How did yoga really enter the West and become a huge $1 trillion economy?
Okay, so in the 50s and 60s, after independence, there were 4 or 5 major gurus who brought yoga to the West from India. And I've interviewed most of them. I knew Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I know Yogi Amrit Desai. He's the only one alive in the late 80s in Florida. And I knew Swami Sachidananda. I knew most of them. So they said that in India, because of the inferiority complex of the elite, there was no market for yoga at that time, yoga and meditation in India, because in the 50s and 60s, people like, the generations before you were ashamed of this. So they brought it to the West, where there was a big hunger, and the Americans loved it. They thought that this was better than drugs as a way of silencing the mind, quietening the mind. Some of them just stuck with the physical asana level, but a lot of them went deeper than that. So the entire tradition of meditation has turned into what the Westerners call mind sciences. Mind sciences have really done a lot of appropriation of Buddhism, Tibetan meditation, and Vedic yogic traditions, and turned it into a scientific paradigm. And this is the cutting edge of neuroscience. A lot of neuroscience, a lot of psychotherapy and psychological methods, psychiatric methods are basically based on yogic and meditation knowledge that they have attained. So yoga went from relaxation to new age to counterculture, then it entered science, then it entered lifestyle, how to slim and look better, and better grades in college and for sports and all of that stuff. And then some people started decoupling it from the Indian roots because they wanted to appropriate it. One of the problems with the Indian tradition, which I write about a lot, is how our knowledge has been taken, decoupled from our sources, reappropriated as westernized and sold back to Indians. And then Indians love it because, some white person is praising us, so it must be good. Well, we have that.
Is that what's happening right now, Rajiv? Is that what's happening right now in India? Do you think we're seeing an entire culture of reappropriation? And is this really a bad thing? Isn't it a good thing that people are at least doing some yoga?
Okay, so this is a very good point. Doing some yoga is better than doing none, but decoupling it and abusing the source. See, when you enjoy the fruits of a tree, you must respect the roots, because the roots are going to create next year's harvest. So you talked about the ethics, what we should all do. We should always respect and nurture the roots of a tree, which is giving us the fruits. So if the yoga tradition is the tree, it has deep roots, then if the Westerners are enjoying the fruits, they should also nurture the roots. They should also respect the roots. But what they're doing is cutting off the tree, harvesting the fruits and letting the roots atrophy and die, and that's not right. That's wrong of them. So,
And what are some ways that these roots can be nurtured?
well, the roots can be nurtured by our young people like you respecting the Vedic origin and saying, okay, this would not have existed without these origins, and this is to do it authentically. We should do it in the context of the Veda, the Vedanta, the Ayurveda, the Yoga, the meditation, all of these together as one ecosystem. And when you do that, you're respecting the roots. One thing I want to tell you, your name, Trivedi, is three Vedas. So you come from the background of people who were honored, and they were in charge of, they were the trustees of keeping the integrity of these three Vedas. There are Chatur Vedas, four Vedas,
But they were also a
two
little
Vedas.
lazy because they forgot the fourth one, right? They didn't read
Okay.
all four. They just stopped at three.
But the thing is, rather than saying lazy, you should give them credit for being specialized. I mean, a cardiologist cannot be accused, why aren't you also an eye doctor and a foot doctor? But the point is, if he's the best cardiologist, that's pretty darn good. Okay, so
All right, ancestors, I respect you.
yeah. So what you have to do is continue that tradition in your life. And your name, Ira, is Iravati. That is the name for Saraswati. So that's the knowledge. So what can you do in your life? You can learn about the Saraswati tradition. You can learn about the three Veda tradition, get connected to your heritage, and require that the Westerners and the Westernized Indians have to understand all this, because this is the soil. You cannot take a plant out of the soil and put it somewhere else and expect it to grow the same thing. You know that. I mean, the people in Champagne in France, they sue you if you call something Champagne not grown in that region of Champagne, because they are saying that it can only be grown here because the soil and the climate and the weather is very special. So this is true. The Vedic soil is very necessary, and this, to protect this, is, I think, a very important yajna that we should all do.
Thank you, Rajivji. I think I have a lot to do, It's a
But
lofty
you're on a good
ambition.
start.
I'm going to get inspired by people like you and try to go ahead on this path. And in the thing, trying to giving back some of this in the yagna tradition, and hopefully spreading the love, spreading the word, spreading the knowledge, And that's the purpose of this festival as well.
Absolutely. And I want to say one thing before we close. A lot of people said, oh, Ira has abused our tradition. Don't talk to her. Why are you on her show and all that? I said, no way. Because young people are searching. They are experimenting. They take a position here. They take a position there. And it is for us to educate them, inform them, ground them. As long as a person is open-minded, and as long as they're learning and moving on, whatever they may experiment with, whatever positions they are taking in the past are okay as part of growing up. That is what happens when you grow up. You experiment and you try this and that. But as an open-minded person, you are wanting to search, learn, get reconnected with the three Veda tradition. Even the one Veda would be enough to get started. And the Saraswati tradition, which I bless you that you should follow that tradition, please.
Thank you.
And then you can inspire millions of other young people. And that would be, I would say, your Swadharma. Swadharma is the personalized dharma, which means my calling. What is my calling? And your Swadharma becomes your yagna, and everybody has to discover their Swadharma, and that becomes the collective yagna. This is the message of the pandemic.
This is the message of the swallow your Swadharma, not your Pardharma. Pardharma.
Yeah.
Go with the Swadharma.
You do your Swadharma, so you do what is your rightful calling, rather than somebody else's. Let them do theirs, and if everybody carries out their ethical mandates, their ethical dharma in whatever state you are in, wherever you live, whatever your conditions are, within the context of that, do your Swadharma. And if everybody does that, that is the collective yagna. And that is what the pandemic is requiring us to sit down, reset, think about it, and change our lives.
Thank you so much, Rajivji. We have some burning questions. I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions, not just myself. So thank you.
Please.
Thank you once again. Guys, we've told everyone that they're going to win some exciting prizes if they ask you good questions. So I know that people have been paying some close attention to ask some good questions. So I'm just going to check on our live feed for the questions that are coming this way. There's a question by Sneha Pujari, is the COVID the end of the Kal Yuga? That's her question.
Well, I think whether it is the end of the Kali Yuga or whether it is the call to action for something within the Kali Yuga, the how we frame it in the context of Yuga and all that, we can debate that more extensively. I don't think that's an important point. The important point is that it is a kind of a mini pralaya. It is a mini dissolution of the old way of life, the old way of people, how they ran their lives. The world will never be the same again. And this post-pandemic era this pandemic is a bigger shift in world thought than the 9/11. I think that the way we will live has changed forever. And so that's a big reset. And whether we call it the end of Kali Yuga or we shouldn't assume that, okay, it's the end of Kali Yuga, so no problems anymore. All the problems of Kali Yuga are gone because the Kali Yuga is over. I think it's not that simple.
Yeah.
There will be more pandemics. There will be more pandemics.
There's going to be a COVID-20.
There will be, well, also beyond the COVID, there will be other things happening because, the life, the kind of living creatures, the kind of pathogens that exist out there are not going away just because we may defeat the COVID-19. There are so many pathogens and other kinds of natural disasters. So humanity has always got to be in this yagna of give and take.
Oh, that's a wonderful answer. Rajivji, with another question by Rima Darira. She's saying, can Ayurveda cure the COVID-19 pandemic? Or are there, I guess, lessons from Ayurveda that can help?
Yes. So here I want to tell people, if you go to our YouTube site, we are having almost every day or every week, we are having 2 or 3 of these sessions with eminent doctors of Ayurveda. So you go to rajivmalhotra.official. That is my YouTube channel. Rajivmalhotra.official is also my Facebook channel. We have 7 million followers in Facebook. And so you can join the YouTube channel. And on Twitter, we have @Rajiv Message. We also have Instagram @infinityfoundation.official. So if you go there, you will see an ongoing discussions with Ayurvedic doctors, and the answer is yes, because the short answer is yes. The Ayurveda gives you so many ways to improve your immune system. As yoga, you were explaining, the pranayama will improve your immune system. So will Ayurveda. So a pathogen is an external entity that is invading your body. Some people are strong, some people are weak. So why are the older people more vulnerable? Why are the people who have pre-existing medical conditions more vulnerable? Because their immune system is weaker. So if you use Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, these kind of things to improve your immunity, it doesn't mean your chance goes down to 0, but you're certainly going to be better off.
Okay, wonderful. So everyone, do visit Rajivji's website. There's a lot of good tips there. I myself have been checking it out, and there's a lot of great information. Do a daily practice of pranayama, even if it's for 5 to 10 minutes. This is a very good goal to have during this time. And try to follow some basic principles of Ayurveda, simple little things that you can try and do in your daily life. We have a lot of questions coming in. There's a good question by Suresh. It's an interesting question. What happens when people feel that their own Swadharma is in conflict with somebody else's?
Well, your Swadharma, you do your Swadharma, and as long as you are not harming anybody else, you do your Swadharma. If they don't like it, they have to do their Swadharma. The fact that I'm living a certain lifestyle may be that somebody else doesn't like. I'm not impinging on them. I'm not requiring that, the other person has to be like me. I'm giving them the same freedom that I have for myself. So if my Swadharma is not imposing on anybody, I'm doing my duties towards, children, family, neighbors, employees, the cosmos. If I'm in my relationships with third parties, I'm not harming anybody, then I certainly have the freedom to follow my own Swadharma, and so should you.
Great. And our last question of the day, how do we, by Ayush Pant, how can we slow down our pursuit of pleasant sensations, and how do we attain real happiness?
Okay, this is a question for a yogi, because when you do yoga, you will at some point firstly you feel relaxed, then you'll feel mentally relaxed, then you'll eventually you'll experience Anand. Because the nature of the self is Sat Chit Anand. That is the nature of who we are. We are not born sinners, we are not fallen sinners, or any those kind of things don't apply to the Vedic paradigm. We are born Sat Chit Anand. We have that in us. So if the essence of each one of us is Anand, when you clean up the mess, when you clean up all the vrittis, chitta vritti nirodh yoga, that is what Patanjali says. When you clean up all the disturbances, all the emotional chaos, all the psychological chaos, all the mental disturbances, the cognition becomes exceedingly clear, and then you experience Anand. And once you experience Anand, then you can go and help other people. If you are yourself troubled, and if you are with all these sanskars and conditions of selfishness and greed, then if you go out and try to help other people, it will be with a selfish motive. So first you have to do the yoga to become clean and clear and live in Anand and bliss without depending on external stimulation, without depending on external goodies, without every few minutes, okay, I have to check my email. No attention. You can't suffer from attention deficit if you are a yogi. So your attention span is long, and you are still. Mental stillness gives you Anand. If you are experiencing that, then actually a lot of your problems go away right away.
So thank you, Rajiv ji, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And please stick on. We have Deva, Prenal, and Mateen coming for some chanting. So we would love to have you stick on with us and enjoy some of the Satchitananda that they will bring us. Thank you again, Rajiv ji. It's been an honor and a blessing to have you with us at the Being Yoga Festival. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to end this. Good job having this festival.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here and also hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified. To donate, please click this button.